I think entrepreneurship is the future of journalism. I think now that anybody can create a media site and have it reach the whole world without needing to spend money on printing presses and broadcast towers and all these kinds of really expensive equipment. I think that opens up the opportunity for really anybody to build new sites, build new applications and products that reach a really large audience, which used to be like what journalists did in big companies, but now it opens up the field to a lot of smaller companies to come along and try new things. To take the leap to doing a startup, I think you need to be pretty open to different ideas and be somebody who sees different threads that might not make sense when you look at them, but can kind of put it all together in a way that does make sense eventually. So people who are kind of creative and finding links between unrelated things, I think it's important to be a self-starter, obviously, to kind of not be somebody who's waiting for people to tell them what to do, but be willing to jump into doing anything. Because really, you might have to, write blog posts or do code or figure out which journalist to talk to get PR or whatever it is. Like, you have to kind of be willing to do anything when you're doing a startup. So I was fortunate enough before starting Storify to do a fellowship at Stanford, actually the Knight Fellowship for Journalists. So I think having a place where you can experiment and try things outside of a big media company can definitely be helpful, and that's where I can see things like this CUNY program in entrepreneurial journalism helping a lot to give people kind of freedom to explore things and not be tied to any legacy organization or structure in a company. So I think that's really critical to give people a start with doing something new. I think probably the most important thing too is to do something that you really care about and are passionate about, because this is something that's going to be your focus. You should wake up thinking about it. You should be falling asleep thinking about it, because otherwise, it's just going to be, kind of painful, and the people who are really passionate about it are going to win and be successful. So I would say find something that you really deeply care about and want to focus on and go for it.
When I started TK CUNY, I already had a website going, brickcitylive.com, and I had lots of content, but I really wanted to be able to build out a business model to make it a more sustainable business, and I've done that through the program. New opportunities are being generated by people who are doing entrepreneurial ventures, and not necessarily from the institutional journalism outlets. When I came in, I had a website that had content on it. Now that I've left, I actually have two additional ways of making money. The program helped me to think more expansively about what I was delivering to my audience. Before, I thought I was just a journalism site, but now I really see myself as a service that delivers information in a variety of ways. I think having access to the folks who are thinking about this deeply every day is a really big advantage. When I was working on my business outside, I was just thinking about operating the business. I wasn't pulling back and thinking about some of the critical issues in entrepreneurial journalism, and this forced me to slow down and really think about those issues.
There's a lot of different expectations coming into the program. I knew one thing is that I wanted to turn my idea into a reality, into an actual business. And I would say this program has definitely helped me get closer to that goal. I've been in a couple startup competitions. Just the whole startup community and the whole startup environment that I've been introduced to over the last couple of months has been pretty addictive. And I think I wouldn't have been able to be introduced to that community if it wasn't for Tao Knight. And for that, I'm extremely grateful and thankful that I've kind of been introduced to this whole new world, going from a traditional newsroom to a kind of new media atmosphere and learning about all these different new businesses and startups and ideas. I think it's been great. It's definitely exceeded my expectations in that aspect. The foundations of the program are obviously rooted in learning the business of journalism. Not just how newspapers have made money over the last decades, but how to make money in the new digital age, how to sustain a business, whether it's with an individual person, a small team. I think definitely that's the key here is, what type of revenue models are out there that are realistic for a new media startup that doesn't have the money, whether it's through, native advertising and sponsored content, whether it's hosting public events, whether it's partnerships with other businesses in similar fields, affiliate marketing programs, you name it. There's so many different options out there these days where if we can, combine them, be practical, combine them, get creative, we can come up with really cool new business and revenue models for the businesses that we're creating. I think that we have the freedom to do that because we're not tied down by a big corporate entity. We're all working as individuals here, and we all have the freedom and the flexibility to think in different ways, go against the grain, and really, kind of disrupt media in the way it needs to be disrupted. I think being in this program has helped me realize what I need to do next in order to make this a real business, in order to make GoBaller a real business. We're looking to get into an accelerator program where we get anywhere between a $25,000 to $50,000 investment in exchange for between 4 to 8% of the company. In exchange for that, we not only get the money, but we get a mentorship program, we get introduced to investors. It's a whole new network and community of people that we can be a part of. Work along other startups in the same position as we are who are bootstrapping and relying on sweat equity at this point. So yeah, I definitely know what I want to do with GoBaller. We want to get into an accelerator this summer. We want to launch our beta app and then hopefully get additional investment afterwards, maybe apply for a big accelerator, something like Y Combinator, Techstars here in New York City, where we can finally have the traction to prove that we're ready for the big time and the big stage and making this, like I said, a reality.
I think the program changed me in 3 big ways. One is I'm much more confident, optimistic about journalism as a business now than I was some 4 months back when I came here. And the second would be I used to think that journalism needs some kind of philanthropy or impact investing to survive. Now I think for-profit model will work perfectly fine with journalism. And I used to think of journalism primarily as a content business. Now I think more in terms of service to community.
There were sort of 2 main things that really were great and surprising to me. The first one is the network that the program gives you access to. It was almost on a weekly basis that we're being introduced to VCs, to media types, and to really important people in the industry. And all those people, without fault, if you would email them, they would follow up and you could get a meeting with later. So it really helps you expand and connect with the network here in New York. I think the other really important element that kind of blew me away is we're specifically Jeff's lectures, and we're just the idea of challenging your whole concept of what news is, how we produce it, and what our responsibility is as journalists in creating it. For me, and this is maybe just talking about my own skill set, the biggest advancement that I have made is really being methodical about launching a company, is measuring as many things as you can, and it's really testing a lot of the assumptions that you come into a project with. I think so often I would launch projects because I was passionate about them or I really wanted them to succeed, and then I would be met with failure. This program really taught me how to figure out what the assumptions are based around a project and then the test as I go along the way to try to avoid some of those pitfalls.
Und wenn du nicht jeden Tag dran bleibst, dann verstehst du, wenn du jetzt zum Beispiel das erste Mal was über die Kleine lesen würdest, wirst du nicht richtig verstehen, was da los ist. Und diese Lücke soll es ein bisschen schließen. Genau. Was machst du? Ich mache Content.
Hi, I'm Christian Fehrenbach.
I'm Sarah Sugar.
And we are both Townite Fellows at the Townite Center for Entrepreneurial Journalism. This is my 4th semester at the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism. I got my master's here the first 3 semesters, and it was a great experience for me to stay and do the fellowship because I really learned about the business side of journalism opposed to just learning how to tell a story the first 3 semesters.
I was part of the 4-month program here as well. I was a German fellow, and for me, I think the biggest advantage, apart from all the great people we met and all the great people we were put in contact with, was that we were actually encouraged to do our own business. I think in Germany there's nothing comparable to that, because in Germany you're being taught how to pitch yourself to other media companies, whereas here we were being encouraged to become the media company, and so that was basically it.
And it's also great because Jeff and Jeremy are the yin and yang of journalism. And you are always going to get two sides of the coin.
Great alliteration. That's it. 2 thumbs up for Town Night.
We're done.